I'll have to apologize ahead of time. The audio in this video is probably going to be terrible in comparison to all my last videos because I don't quite have my Tinker desk set up with proper recording stuff. But that aside, today's video is actually pretty exciting. I'm going to put the thing away while I tell a quick little story. In 2010, I believe, I was out shopping with a friend and his mom. They were doing some errands and I thought I'd tag along just because I had nothing better to do. And we were in a Zellers at the time, and I got split off from them because they ran off to do something and I wanted to look at the games. I was walking through the aisle just kind of poking around. I had my bank card with me in case I wanted a snack or something from the nearby fast food joints like Burger King and whatnot. And while I was walking through the aisle, I saw this in a box for $150, and it came with an amp, which I actually have right there. This is the guitar that I started learning to play guitar on many, many years ago. However, as the internet is the internet, there are many trolls, gatekeepers, and so forth. A lot of people told me that this guitar was an absolute piece of shit, and that it would never be good for anything musical. There was nothing I could ever do about it, so I was best just going to a music store, buying a Squire or a PV Raptor or something, and throwing this thing in the trash. And being the young and impressionable teenager I was, that's what I did. I bought a PV Raptor, and I put this on the curb, and by the end of the day, somebody had taken it away. That's the last time I saw this guitar. A couple years later, I started learning that there were some pretty simple ways to take a guitar like this and get it playing well enough that you could actually write music with it. Because at the end of the day, every instrument has its strong points and its weak points. Everything can be used in music in the right musical context. It's been like, I think 14 years since I got rid of this guitar, and I've learned a lot along the way. And so I started looking on the used marketplace. I couldn't find a used listing for this anywhere, which made sense to me even at the time because this was like a big box store crappy guitar, and so it didn't really have any resale value. The only people that would resell this was people who found it in their basement or whatever and didn't really know anything about guitars. So I went years, 9 years now, looking for this guitar, really focusing on just wanting to find the guitar. And my plan was, after I found the guitar, somehow eventually I would start hunting for the amp, because I was more focused on the guitar. Then I started shooting a video about a week ago, talking about making music with low-end equipment. And I was actually going to use this little Yamaha GA10 that's right here, and I still plan on doing that video. I filmed the intro to that video, and I referenced this guitar and told the story of it. If you're wondering, this is the image of the guitar. I stole this off Google because it's the only place I can find an image of this guitar, but this is the exact one that I had. This was for sale online a while ago, but I missed it, and I have not seen another one. I dead set want to find this guitar. And immediately after ending filming, I went over to Facebook because I thought I got a message from somebody. Turns out it was a dumb notification about memories. Decided to just go doom scroll the marketplace on the off chance something I've been looking for shows up. And when I went to the marketplace, the first listing was this. $100, flat out. Came with a guitar and an amp. I didn't see what kind of amp it was, and a guitar pedal. In fact, it's a little bit more than a guitar pedal. It's like a multi-effects unit, which, you know, it's a cheapo. It's not like the most amazing one on the planet. In fact, it might be bottom of the barrel. But I got the guitar, the amp, and some cables, which was a pretty good deal for $100. I'm sure some people would say it's not, but considering I've been hunting this guitar down for like 9 years. Now obviously this is based on a Fender Stratocaster. I took the pickguard off and took a look over everything when I brought it home because I was obsessed with the fact that I finally found one of these. And it looks like the body's made out of MDF. Everything else about it is fine. I mean, obviously the pickups are going to be really low quality, and basically everything else is also going to be very low quality. And because this guitar is at minimum 14 years old, these cheap pots have started to get very scratchy. And at the end of the day, I mean, I gave it as good of a setup as I can give a setup to a guitar like this without making any physical modifications to it, just so I could re-experience what the guitar was like when I first got it. So when I first got it, the action was pretty high, and it's still pretty high in here. But I did do some truss rod adjustment because it did have string tension on it for Lord knows how many years. The tuning machines were absolutely terrible. But it's all original right now. The only thing that isn't original configuration is I took one of the springs out in the back because it just wasn't reacting properly. And honestly, if you look at this, usually the springs are straight to the block. But on this guitar, the block doesn't quite line up with the claw. So the springs are kind of off to the side. So it is kind of not working perfectly. But the point of this video is just to kind of show this thing off. This is literally not the exact guitar, but this is the same exact model of guitar that I started playing guitar on. It's a 22 fret. Sometimes I see cheap guitars have like 20 or 21. Having 22 is just one extra note you can play. It's not the biggest deal because I don't often play up this high, but it's an option. The neck, I believe, is made out of maple. Don't let this figuring or wood grain fool you. That's what's called a photo finish. They make a guitar out of like really low quality materials, and then they print out a photo of wood grain, either in a color so they can just put a clear finish over it and it just looks like thing, or they print out a black and white grayscale one, or even screen printed on. I don't know the exact method they use to do this sort of thing, but basically it's an image of wood grain, and then they put finish over top of it. And I'm sure that if I looked close enough, yeah, I can see there's jagged edges around it, so it's very clear someone cut it out or glued it on here and then tried to like use a razor blade, but kind of skipped a little and overcut and undercut. So for anybody who cares, it is an HSS configuration. What that means is that there's a humbucker, a single coil, and a single coil. This switch here, for anyone who doesn't know anything about guitars, changes which of these are active. So in this position, it's this one. Second position, it's both of these. Third position, it's just this one. Fourth position, it's both of these. And this position, it's just this one. It's got two tone knobs, and essentially what tone knobs do is it kind of cuts off the high end of the sound, so the stuff that's more sharp and bright, and kind of leaves the lower bassy tones. And then the volume knob is pretty explanatory. It decides how much sound actually goes out the output jack, and the output jack's where you plug your cable in, which goes to your amp. Voila. For those of you who also don't know, a whammy bar, essentially what happens is you put it in here and it tips this bridge forward or also backwards depending on how you have it set up, so you can kind of drop the pitch and raise the pitch of your strings. Bad bridges like this tend to make you go out of tune, and then you have to retune your guitar after using the whammy bar a bunch. Sorry if anybody who's watching this actually knows stuff about guitars and is like, why are you explaining this? This is for anyone who doesn't really know anything about guitars. I also just realized I didn't tell you what brand it was. It's an Ashbury. I think they still make acoustic guitars now, but they don't seem to make electrics at all anymore. In fact, I haven't seen any other model of Ashbury other than like the Stratocasters and the acoustics. I actually used my little jig here to measure the resistance of the pickups, or at least the positions of this switch here. So let me go get that book. So I took some readings, and the nut width is 41 millimeters. The neck taper, the nut is 41 millimeters, which makes sense because that is the nut size as well. Around the end of the fretboard, it's 56 millimeters. And then at the 12th fret, it is 51 millimeters. So it's like a perfect taper of 10 millimeters from the nut all the way to here, and then it kind of tames for the rest of the way and only goes up to about 56. In terms of the pickups, I thought I did this measurement already. There's no better time than now, so let's do that. So what I'm going to use for this is this multimeter. I have two. I have like a more analog one and then this digital one. But essentially, this one's a little messed up. As you can see, when I turn it on, it doesn't turn on unless I pinch right here. I need to set this to 200K. And then I need to clip this very carefully there. So to use this, I need to stick this broken ended one, which I just kind of pulled the wire out and folded it over because this cable is the perfect size to go into the common port. And then this one goes into the ohms, volts, temperature. So you're probably wondering how this is going to help me measure the ohms of pickups. Well, that's what my little jig thing is for, which I put somewhere. This thingy. So essentially, this is an old speaker plug thing with a guitar cable on the other end. And all I do is stick the positive one in there, stick the negative one in there, and now this is hooked up to the multimeter, and all I have to do is plug the guitar. Okay, so it's reading 11. So this is saying 200K. It goes up to 200K. So this, if I'm understanding reading these things properly, that means the humbucker in position 1 is 11K. Middle position, which is the middle pickup, is this doesn't actually make any sense to me. 12.13. Wow, it's jumping all over the place, my dude. Yeah. See, I think the issue is that my volume pot's got some problems. To be at full volume, I actually have to like turn it to full and hold it there. So we're going to say this is like 5.1K. Let's go back to bridge and do the same thing. 10.4. Yeah, you know, that actually makes more sense because it's a humbucker. These were probably the same coils, honestly. So now we're going to do neck, which is probably 5.0. Okay. I'm also going to take an in-between reading. So we'll go to position 2, 3.4. That makes sense. And then we go to a 2.5. And see, that looks like my math is about correct because these two are both about 5 on their own. These two. But if we put them in series, it drops the resistance in half. No, sorry, in parallel, not in series. If these are in parallel, the resistance drops. So that math of mine actually checks out for once. The tone knob doesn't actually do anything to the resistance. And if it does, it's a very minimal amount. Yeah, that is the measurements for the pickups and the different positions for this guitar. Not like the most needed information ever, but out of sheer curiosity about the specs of my first guitar ever. Point is, now I have those measurements if I ever need them. I'm sure I left something out, but let's take a look at the amp too. It's a pretty bog standard amp. I'm sure it's probably a privately labeled one. So there are many other brands that have ones that look just like this, or at least did back in the day. I'm pretty sure it's a 5 or a 10 watt. This one says that it's 7 watts. There's no serial number, which I suppose doesn't surprise me. It's got a pretty standard looking grill cloth on here. In fact, I think this might actually be the same material, or at least very close to my Fender Mustang 1V2 over there. In terms of the speaker, I don't actually know what the rating is. Looking at it, it says it's a 10 watt speaker. It looks like it's a 6 ohm, which is actually kind of funny because I have Pioneer speakers over there in this custom cab I'm making, which are also 6 ohms, which means theoretically in the future I could add a little jack in here that lets me use this with an external cabinet, which means I could actually play this little thing through the custom cab I'm making, which is really actually kind of awesome, because I would like to use this thing in making music. I always liked the thought of making music with the stuff that most people say you can't. Those are the specs that are on here, because otherwise I don't know anything else. It's got a treble and a bass knob, which is pretty standard. It's got a clean level and a drive level. This acts more like a master volume, so you can use this to turn it up when it's in clean mode, but when it's in overdrive mode, when it's in drive mode, you can actually tune how much drive there is. However, like most practice amps, the drive circuit in this isn't great, and I think in the future I would like to try and mod this and try and put a better circuit in there, or just improve the one that's already here. But anyways, I'm gonna have to wait till tomorrow to really show you what these two things sound like together, because it is a little past midnight now.